It all started with a simple photo, a polished, carefully crafted image released by Kensington Palace to celebrate Prince George's birthday. But beneath the smiles, the regal attire, and the pristine uniforms, there was one detail that shook the monarchy's overlooked son to his core: a title. It might have gone unnoticed by most, but to those fluent in royal protocol, it spoke volumes. Prince George, still just a teenager, had been granted an honorary royal title that symbolized succession, authority, and a stake in the future of the monarchy. Some believed it foreshadowed a future dukedom. Others thought it was a new ceremonial role once reserved for the most senior royals. What was undeniable, though, was that Prince Harry's son Archie was left out. But before we continue, we'd love for you to hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying this video. If you just did, we truly appreciate it. Now, let's get back to the main content. Almost instantly, the internet blew up. Royal watchers, bloggers, and tabloid insiders scrambled to unpack the implications. Why now? Why Prince George? And why exclude Archie? Was this the monarchy's way of shutting the door on the Sussex branch once and for all? The palace remained tight-lipped. Meanwhile, far away in Montecito, the reaction was anything but quiet. Sources close to Harry and Meghan revealed that Harry exploded in anger after seeing the announcement live on TV. Years of buried resentment, suppressed fury, and deep-seated pain finally surfaced. It wasn't just about Prince George receiving a title. This felt like the final erasure of Harry's family line, a stark message that his children no longer mattered to the institution he had once served so loyally. Meghan didn't cry or yell. Instead, those close to her say she shut her laptop, stared out the window, and muttered, "Of course they did." What followed were a series of heated phone calls, private messages, and a voice note so raw and explosive it shocked even the palace aides familiar with Harry's previous outbursts. His anger wasn't just emotional, it was deeply personal. The message was unmistakable. "My son carries royal blood, and you've cast him aside." Yet behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding, one never reported and never heard by the public. While Harry raged, the palace remained stoic, cold, and resolute. And Prince George, carrying his new title with quiet poise, stood alongside his father, the future king, fully aware that his simple presence had reignited one of the most bitter royal feuds in decades. This is the story of a title that shattered what little peace remained, and how one photograph sparked a royal battle that refuses to end. Prince Harry's break with the royal family didn't start with the Oprah interview. It didn't even begin with Meghan. The truth is, it goes back much further, hidden beneath years of quiet pain, simmering resentment, and a role he never wanted. From the moment he was born, Harry was labeled the spare. His older brother William was the heir apparent, carefully prepared from infancy to someday wear the crown. Harry, on the other hand, was often overlooked, valued more as a backup in the line of succession than as a person in his own right. Even as kids, those close to the family noticed the difference. William was polished and polished. Harry was simply tolerated. But the real break happened on the day Princess Diana passed away. Harry was just 12 years old, forced to follow behind his mother's coffin amid flashing cameras and a grieving crowd. While the world mourned Diana, Harry was expected to stay composed, obedient, and dutiful. No rebellion, just duty, he was told. From that day forward, Harry later admitted, he began to feel the crushing weight of the royal institution, a cold, impersonal machine that swallowed feelings and spat out only appearances. Resentment began to build. For years, Harry played along. He served in the military, fulfilled his royal responsibilities, and searched for his place. But inside, he felt expendable, a backup plan for a system obsessed with image. Then Meghan arrived. With her, Harry saw a way out, not just from the press and protocol, but from the invisible prison he'd been trapped in since childhood. Meghan encouraged him to speak up, to question, and to heal. But as their relationship grew stronger, so did Harry's isolation from his family. The institution he'd long tolerated suddenly saw him as a threat. Their wedding was a turning point. While the public celebrated the fairy tale moment, behind palace walls, the atmosphere hardened. Meghan was reportedly warned about breaking protocol. Staff shifts occurred. Leaks about tiara drama, Meghan supposedly making Kate cry, a story that was later denied, and demands began to circulate in the press. Harry recognized the pattern all too well. He had seen what happened to his mother, and it was happening again. By the time Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties in 2020, the wounds ran deep. But the greatest insult wasn't directed at Harry. It was aimed at his son. When Archie was born, he was not granted a royal title. Officially, the palace said this was standard protocol. But behind closed doors, Harry was furious. To him, this wasn't just tradition, it was rejection. "My son, the child of a prince, was denied his rightful recognition," Harry reportedly told a friend. "I was born into this. So was he. Yet they're acting like he doesn't exist." Years passed, but the pain lingered. If anything, it only grew more intense as George, Charlotte, and Louis were celebrated in public ceremonies, featured in official portraits, and embraced by the royal institution. Harry held no bitterness toward the children. He adored them, especially George. But he couldn't ignore the message. One branch of the family was the future. The other, his branch, was being left behind. Even when Harry returned to the UK for funerals or coronations, the distance was clear. Cold receptions, brief appearances, and limited responsibilities only confirmed what he already knew. He and his family were no longer considered active members of the royal family. Harry had held on to hope that someday, maybe when Charles fully took the throne or when William softened, Archie and Lilibet would be accepted back, not just as family but as recognized royals. That hope was shattered the moment Prince George received his new title. At that point, Harry faced a harsh reality. The royal family had moved forward without him. Even worse, they did it openly, deliberately, and without so much as a phone call. For Harry, this wasn't just a slight. It was a clear declaration. The silent war was over. Now he was ready to fight. It was supposed to be just another Sunday morning. Since leaving the UK, Meghan had carefully crafted peaceful mornings in California. The sun was rising over Montecito, the smell of fresh coffee filled the air, and Archie was running barefoot across the lawn. Then came the headline. Prince George awarded honorary title in a private Windsor ceremony. By normal standards, it was a small story, a subtle leak to the Sunday Times, accompanied by a photo of George walking alongside Prince William in a sharp navy suit. But Meghan's attention wasn't on the picture. It was on the caption. Sources confirmed that the young prince was being groomed for future royal responsibilities and had been granted the honorary title of Knight Commander of the Royal Victorian Order, a distinction typically reserved for senior royals, and reportedly approved by the king himself. She froze. This wasn't just an honorary title. It was a message to the world that George was more than just the future of the monarchy. He was already a key player. And others were not. Meghan called Harry into the kitchen. He read the article once, twice, 3 times. His knuckles tightened, his jaw clenched. It wasn't just the title. It was the timing, the quiet ceremony, and the cold way it was announced. No mention of Archie, no acknowledgement, no effort to ease the blow. Only George was celebrated. Archie was invisible. A source close to the Sussexes revealed that Harry's initial reaction was explosive. Sliding his phone across the table, he said, "They've made their choice. And it's not us." Megan was startled by his outburst, even though she was used to the palace's chill. But this was different. This wasn't the media twisting facts. It wasn't a tabloid smear campaign. This was the royal family itself, elevating one child while erasing the other. Harry stormed out of the kitchen, pacing the hallway, cursing under his breath. His voice grew louder, fueled by anger. George is a child. So is Archie. So why does one get titles, uniforms, and duties while the other is treated like he doesn't exist? Megan tried to soothe him, reminding him they had made the choice to step away. But her words barely reached him. "We left the system," Harry said sharply. "Not the bloodline. They're punishing my son because of me." Ignoring Megan's protests, he grabbed his phone and sent a furious message, not to Charles or William, but to a palace aide. The message demanded answers, accountability, and above all, recognition. Not for himself, but for his children, the grandchildren of Princess Diana. The aide never responded. But Harry didn't stop there. Later that night, he recorded a voice note and sent it to a senior royal staffer. Insiders say the message was so blunt it shocked even seasoned palace officials. "Do you think this is over? It's not. He still has royal blood. You don't get to decide he doesn't matter." By morning, word of the outburst had quietly reached Buckingham Palace. Within 24 hours, the atmosphere in royal circles shifted. Not with anger, but with cold determination. The lines were redrawn. The new generation of royals had been chosen. The message was clear and chilling. There is no place for outsiders, not even those bearing the Windsor name. That voice note wasn't the end. It was just the spark. The deafening silence that followed Harry's passionate message to a trusted royal aide, someone who had worked closely with him in military and charity efforts, spoke volumes. No reply, no call back. The palace had deliberately left his words hanging in the air. But Prince Harry couldn't let it go. For days afterward, he was consumed by it. Those closest to him described how he paced the halls of their Montecito home, repeatedly reading the headline and watching footage of George walking alongside William in full ceremonial dress. What others saw as a joyful family moment, Harry saw as a public declaration that his children had been shut out, not just from the family, but from history itself. For him, the snub was more than symbolic. It was deeply personal and intentional. He began reaching out, first to his father, Charles, who didn't respond, then to William, whose call went straight to voicemail. Even a call to a cousin, hoping to get some clarity through informal channels, was forwarded to Kensington Palace with no reply. According to insiders, that's when Harry broke down. "I served this institution," he reportedly shouted during a tense exchange with his team. "I walked behind my mother's coffin for them. I went to war. I sacrificed everything. And this is how they treat my children." A staff member tried to calm him by reminding Harry that he had chosen to step back from royal duties, and that titles and responsibilities are tied to active roles within the monarchy. But Harry wasn't interested in technicalities. This isn't about duties. It's about blood. Archie has royal blood. He's the king's grandson. You can't erase that quietly. To Harry, the issue went far beyond ceremony. He saw George's new title, even if honorary, as the first step in formally establishing the next generation of working royals, George, Charlotte, and Louis. Meanwhile, Archie and Lilibet were being written out of the story, destined to be mere footnotes in the royal legacy. Meghan once tried to intervene. According to a close friend, she quietly told Harry, "They've already made their decision. Don't let them break you again." But by then, he was already broken. Harry reportedly began drafting a letter, not for the press, but for his father. A final plea from a son, not a prince. In it, he wrote, "This isn't about status, it's about acknowledgement. Archie and Lilibet may live far away, but they're still family until you say otherwise in public." The letter was never sent. Instead, Harry's team started closely tracking media coverage as the story of George's new role and Archie's absence spread. The message was clear. He and his children had been excluded. What followed was more than a burst of anger. It marked the start of a new mission. Not to reclaim titles, but to prove that his family still mattered, even if the palace tried to act like they didn't exist. While Harry's fury burned in Montecito, things at Buckingham Palace remained calm. There was no panic, no emotional outbursts, just a quiet acceptance of a decision that had been carefully planned. The move to grant Prince George an honorary title wasn't a surprise. King Charles, Prince William, and a small circle of senior advisors had been discussing it for over a year. With Queen Elizabeth gone, and King Charles now publicly steering the monarchy toward a more modern, streamlined era, symbolism became more important than ever. Every title granted, every event held, and every child seen in public carried meaning. And Prince George, as the future king, was chosen to embody the next generation. Palace insiders revealed the decision went beyond family tradition. It was about public perception, responsibility, and the continuity of the crown. Since taking on increasingly visible roles, Prince George has been carefully prepared, making appearances at Wimbledon, participating in the Queen's Jubilee, and now accompanying his father at solemn ceremonies, always dressed in tailored attire that conveyed composure and strength. The public response was overwhelmingly positive. Media coverage praised him. The royal institution saw George as someone who had earned the trust of both the people and the monarchy. But beyond the public displays, another factor weighed heavily: absence. When the Sussexes stepped back from royal duties in 2020, the Queen made it clear: you can't be half in, half out. That stance still stood. The palace holds that Harry and Meghan's choice to live abroad, pursue media ventures, and avoid royal events meant their children were no longer eligible for official recognition. They chose a different path, one royal official explained. That doesn't mean we don't love them, but the monarchy isn't sentimental, it's constitutional. Titles come with duties, and the Sussex children aren't fulfilling those. The message was deliberate. Some argued Archie and Lilibet were too young for roles, but George was just a bit older. What set him apart? Proximity and involvement. George was present at all major royal occasions, walking beside his grandfather and father, learning, representing, and stepping into a future laid out for him since birth. And then there was Prince William. Though silent publicly, those close to him say he quietly supported the decision to grant George the title. William firmly believes that service must come before sentiment. While privately grieving his brother's departure, he felt those who stayed and served deserved recognition. To him, George's promotion was about responsibility, not favoritism. William also grew more protective of the monarchy itself. The family's reputation has suffered in recent years due to high-profile interviews, memoirs, and documentary revelations, an insider said. For William, restoring trust in the crown requires clear decisions and decisive actions. That meant elevating successors who were present, visible, and loyal. And George? He never asked for anything, but he showed up. He stood tall and quietly accepted the burden of the future. This wasn't about punishing Harry or Meghan. It was about honoring George and reaffirming the line of succession in front of the world. Because outside the palace walls, one truth is clear. The crown doesn't play favorites. It plays to survive. While Harry shouted angrily behind closed doors, Meghan's reaction was calmer on the surface but deeply shaken beneath. She kept quiet publicly. No tweets, no statements, no pointed remarks during interviews. But those close to the Sussexes say Meghan was distressed and embarrassed in the privacy of their Montecito home. According to a close friend of the Duchess,